Climate change sounds complicated, but it's more simple than people realize. I think it's really about the fact that the most vulnerable groups are more affected by climate change. So of course, that includes women, young women and girls, for example, but it also includes the elderly, children, indigenous peoples, people with disabilities. And the idea is that we want to make sure that those groups who are most vulnerable are also a central part of the decision-making spaces on climate action. So in terms of gender, the idea is that we can't really solve climate change with only 50% of the population. So we really need women in the decision-making spaces, in the negotiations like COP26, to be able to give their input and be able to really take out this patriarchal structure that we have and achieve a more leadership role, because they are more affected. They are, in many developing countries, carrying the water miles and miles and not going to school or not going to work because they have to do those jobs that are part of this patriarchal society. So the idea is that we move from the vulnerability part of gender inequalities into the leadership of gender equality and climate justice. I think there's many ways that you can be involved as a young person in climate action. You can be involved locally, just helping your city council with recycling initiatives or just walking your bike, very little things, which I think some people can say that individual action is not important, but I think the message that that sends to your family, your friends, people around you is really important. But also, of course, you can get involved in politics or in international relations, such as in diplomacy through the UN mechanisms. Even though we still see a lot of inequity in the UN climate conferences, there are official spaces where young people can get involved, such as YOUNGO, which is the youth constituency of the UN Climate Change Convention. And that is a very special space where young people from all over the world come together to discuss what their commitment points, what their advocacy points are for the negotiations every year. So those are spaces where young people can really get their voice, make sure that their voice is heard, their national perspectives are heard. So I would encourage everyone to find what that space looks like in their own country and then bring those experiences and those demands and those priorities to the COP space, to YOUNGO. The COP is the Conference of Parties. It's the supreme body of the UN Climate Change Convention, and basically it happens every year, and it's where all of the parties, which means all of the countries that are part of the UN Climate Convention, meet to discuss what kind of commitments, what kind of ambition they're gonna agree on as a global community to solve the climate crisis. So I'm just here trying to exercise that advocacy for girls, education, climate justice, and of course representing the Brazilian youth, which is where I'm from, and it's a very important part, I think, of my activism and my advocacy work. Having COP in African countries or in Latin American countries really creates or bridges that gap in terms of accessibility of young people who oftentimes are in the front lines of climate action in their countries, but are not able to bring that knowledge and bring that experience to the COP space. So I think it's really monumental to have COP in Egypt and have COP in an African space after such a long time.